And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, today we're taking a look at Dexikon. This is a small game from Eagle-Gryphon Games. This fits in their Egg line. This is number 5 of that line. It's a word-building, deck-building game, which sounds awfully familiar. I feel like I've talked about this before, and that's because I have. There's another game called Paperback, which is also a word deck-building game. However, I was told the games were different. Maybe you never played Paperback, so none of that means anything to you. Do you like Scrabble? Do you like deck-building games like Dominion? Maybe you've never heard of either of those games and you just want to play a word-style game? Well, this is one for you, perhaps. At the beginning of the game, there's going to be 4 piles of cards, IOU, ES, AT, penalty cards. There's also 6 cards that are placed face up in a pool that come from this deck. This deck has different letter cards in it. Each card has a letter, a value for that letter, a cost, and then some sort of special ability, and the background color is kind of a reminder. For example, black cards are worth points at the end of the game. And so players are also going to have a starting hand of cards that are 2, 2, 2, and 4. Like that, you'll shuffle these cards. You will draw 6, and one player is chosen to go first. Each player has a score sheet, and on your turn, you're going to look at the cards in your hand, and you're going to try to make some word with these cards. So maybe I'll make the word rats. Okay, now I could make a word with all of them, but whatever. Rats. And so that's R-A-T-S. You can use either letter on these cards with multiple letters, and this can be anything I want it to be. This is a value of 3 that it's giving me this word. Now I have 2 options. I can write that word down here, which does 2 things. One, it banks that word. No one else can use that word for the rest of the game. That word would score me 3, and I would be able to spend some of those points to buy more cards, but only half rounded down. So I'd only have 1 point, which means I could buy one of these 0-cost cards, but I could do that. Or I could not bank it and just basically discard the card or spend the card essentially, and I'd have 3 points. And with 3, I might say, I want to buy this R. And so I'll buy the R. That card is going to be replaced from the top of the deck. Every card that I played, every card that I did not play, every card that I bought are all discarded. And then I will draw more cards from my deck. If I run out of cards, which you will do on the very first turn of the game, you'll shuffle your discards and draw more. You will continue to do this. As you get more cards, when you have this one and you play this card, it's an action. You may return a card from your hand. Return means I can take a card and put it back on its pile here. Or if it's one of the other letters, I can simply discard it. These black cards do nothing for you during the game. At the end of the game, they're going to be worth points. Orange cards, fire cards, are attack cards. They will hurt other players somehow, however, only if they are used as part of a word. Blue cards can give you actions. You can return any number of cards from your hand. Clean up at the end of the round when you're discarding. This one lets you draw 2 extra cards. This one lets you draw 1 extra card. Response, if someone else plays an attack card, I can be like, nope, not happening, and just show them the response cards. So those are different types of cards. You'll notice these cards, some of them can cost more. Z costs 8, but it's also worth a value of 4 when you use it in a word. Now this is going to continue until one person gets 7 words that they've written. At that point, we're going to come to the end of the game. Each player is going to have 1 chance. They get to take all their cards in their complete deck and build the best possible word that they can with those cards. Actions don't mean anything, and they'll score that as their last word total. You will then add up the total of your 5 best words out of the 7 words that you have, so 2 of them don't count. You'll get any bonus points for any of these black cards that are in your deck. You will lose 2 points for each of these penalty cards that you still have. Maybe you bought more of them as time goes by. And whoever has the highest total is the winner of the game. Now, word games are a favorite of a lot of people. A lot of people like sitting around and figuring out the best possible word that they can make. And a game like this is going to allow that. You at the beginning, you can make any words you want. Those random, those wild letters and IOU, ES, AT. You have all the vowels. You have the two of the most common consonants, S and T. very easy to work with, very easy to make words, and as time goes by you get more letters and you'll be able to make more words. The game gives you the option of making choices. All right, am I going to bank this word, or am I going to basically just use it to buy other letters? And you can actually kind of control the pace of the game. I want the game to end quickly. I'm just going to bank a word every turn. In fact, that score sheet I showed you, that person did exactly that. They just did a word every turn. They made sure the game ended in 7 rounds. So you can hurry the game along, or you can drag it out trying to get better words. And in fact, you might try to get better words, let someone else run it, and maybe they get 7 mediocre words, but you get 3 or 4 really juicy words, and your final word is even better. The game isn't just about playing the different letter cards and making words, so there is some deck building to it. You're going to sit there and go, oh, I want to get rid of some of these cards that aren't worth as much out of my hand. I'm going to try to return them. I'm going to try to collect a bunch of the black cards to get extra points at the end of the game. I want to have these cool actions. I want to go after other players. There's different options you have, and each player on their turn can wipe all the letters before they buy. So there's always at least probably one card that you want. You're like, oh, those are all too expensive. Some people will probably not be really fond of the attack cards. Fortunately, they did make them pretty easy to block if you get some of these, but the attack cards aren't horrible. They just basically add more cards to your hand. They don't really mess you up. They will certainly hurt your score at the end of the game, and they're not pleasant, but you know, I wouldn't not get the game because of them. I think it should be mentioned here the time issue of this game. This is 1 to 5 players. There's a solo variant. I haven't played with that, but I'll tell you, the game exponentially seems to drag on with more players in it. And when it's someone else's turn, you can sit there and make a word out of the cards in your hand, and that's fine. That will help speed the game up. But then when you have your word, you can kind of just sit there and wait, because there's not a lot you can do. You can't plan what letters you're going to buy, because they probably won't be there when it comes back around to your turn. And people can take quite a while sitting there going, what word can I make? And that, you know, that can be a big thing. The game also includes challenges, which didn't come up in the games I play because most of the people made words that actually existed. But if you make a word and no one believes you, you pull out the dictionary and someone can challenge you. And if the challenger is correct, they get a point. If you were challenged and the word is in the dictionary, you get a point, extra points at the end of the game. I can see why they put that in the game, you know, because there are people who would try to run the system, but we just never really challenge each other in our games because, again, we just picked words that people knew. So this game, I think, definitely tends to favor the wordophiles, or whatever they call people who love Scrabble and be like, I know all the 2-letter words and I know all these strange big long words. Yeah, okay, that's going to favor them, especially since the game gives you an extra point when you use every card in your hand. So some people will sit there for the longest time figuring that out, and some people will be better than others. And I think no matter how good you are at deck building and strategy and putting cards together, if someone's better at words than you are, they're probably going to win the game. Now, I like the game just fine, but I have to talk about paperback because I love paperback, and I need to compare the two of them. Dexikon wins because it's smaller, that's for sure. This one's easier to carry around. Paperback has a way better look to it. The card, it just has a cool classic style look to it, and I think paperback is easier for new players to get into. This one certainly rewards people who are better at words, while paperback has a little bit more of a game in it, and the deck building comes into play slightly more than the word building does. And it also, paperback seems to play faster than Dexikon. They both seem to play better with fewer players. I like this, I would prefer to play with 2, and paperback I prefer to play with 2. The fact is, I like paperback better, and I only need one of these games in my collection. I don't see why you would need both. The overlap on them is too big. This one does have that kind of, do you want to bank the word now or do it? And I think this one is probably easier to find at any given point. So this one, and again, the portability might, you might want to get it in your collection for that reason. So I like this fine. I have no need for it in my collection because I already got paperback, and like I said, I feel like they scratch the exact same itch. And I hate to even bring up, I'm doing a review of this game and to be talking so much about other game, but they are that similar. They really are. And so they need to be brought up. But like I said, paperback is often out of print, and so this one might be easier for people to find. Either way, if you like word games and or deck building, but probably more towards the word games end of the line, you will like Dexikon. If you are someone who's like Scrabble, I don't want this card thing, play it. You'll be surprised at how enjoyable it can be, and it's actually a little less lucky than the tiles you would draw from a Scrabble rack. That's Dexikon. Dice Tower Judgment approved!
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door!
Dear.